And so here today for our last session, we have Ashutosh Nandeshwar. Sorry if I mispronounced that. He is Associate Director of Analytics at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, in the Office of University Development. In his role, he provides information and insights from data for strategic actions using machine learning and predictive modeling and building innovative data products. Trained as an industrial engineer from West Virginia University, where he got a PhD in 2010 and a master's in 2006. He has built expertise in the areas of data visualization, machine learning, and strategy. He loves talking about data and its use in generating action, and considers actionless analysis a time waster, especially the ones about which people say interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to him and let it take it away. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. So I already said good afternoon. And actually in the previous sessions they mentioned about the exit doors and everything. So that was my starting jokes, but they already took those away. So I will not make any more jokes about those. But I think the door is here. So I got that pretty much covered. So you cannot escape from here. If you want to escape, you can use those two doors. So my name is Ashutosh Nandeshwar. I'm from University of Michigan, as he mentioned. And I use data and information to make decisions. I want to ask one question before we start this. Is anyone here from Microsoft? Oh, bummer. I would have put that on my resume, right? I spoke to Microsoft people. But actually, I'm going to speak some bad things about Microsoft. That's actually a good thing that they are not here. So I'm so excited to be here. This is perfect. This is my type of crowd. I hope you are also feeling the same. I get excited very few times like this. Waiting for UPS package from Amazon. It's awesome. Or listening to the flight safety instructions. Oh man, nothing beats to that. Every time I hear that, I get my notepad out. I start taking notes. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. As soon as the sign goes off, I take it out and go for a victory lap. Yes. That's just a great feeling, right? So you must have walked in this room thinking, oh man, only 3 problems? I have thousands of problems. Contrary to popular belief, I do not possess any ancient Indian knowledge, or even the modern one, so I cannot really help you there. But I promise one thing, however, when you walk out of this room, you will relate to these 3 problems, and likely find a new angle on how to solve these problems using data, just as Chinese officials have. Chinese officials used very, very simple model and very simple data. What they did was they isolated those sports which offered multiple medals, which were contested by very few countries, and most importantly, were contested by the underrepresented group, that is women, and they were massively underfunded. And once they found those, they just focused on those sports for many years, just like Chinese administration would. Have you seen the Olympic parade there? Oh man, it was like the best synchronized thing you will ever see. It's like robots walking in a line, right? So they focused on these sports for many, many years for preparing these, and they started collecting gold like nobody's business. Did you know that 75% of all the gold medals in these categories, where they offer multiple medals, such as badminton, different weight classes, swimming, 75% of all the gold medals have won by Chinese. And that gets us to the next phrase, that is, kick off every analysis with why and begin with so what, right? Any good analyst worth his money will ask the first question, why, not how. And once the analysis is generated, he will say, so what, not interesting? And good analysts are able to apply the critical thinking skills that remove their biases and evaluate multiple solutions rather than just presenting the first option. And I think that's the key here. We should never be satisfied with the first question, and even worse, never be happy with the first solution. And I want to show you one video where it is illustrated this really nicely.
To line up according to your birthdays, that means from January 1st to December 31st. I don't care how old you are, okay? From January 1st to December 31st, and you have to do it without talking. Ready, set, go. You have 1 minute.
So I'm sorry I was not able to make it big. But the thing, and she's, by the way, Stanford's entrepreneurship, some sort of director. So she's presenting to a big crowd. And the point she's trying to make here is that as soon as one person raised the hand, everybody started following. Nobody even challenged him. Nobody thought that there might be a better solution. I mean, if you just think for 20 seconds, you can come up with 100 better solutions. But that's our problem. We do not iterate enough. We do not think thoroughly. We don't apply critical thinking skills. And we say things like this, interesting, right? And here's my big rant about interesting. Interesting things are just that, interesting. They do not add any value. They do not tell us which direction to take. They do not tell us what to do. And if you do not take any other message from this session today, remember that get rid of interesting from your vocabulary. Do not use interesting, because there are much better things that you could be doing, applying critical thinking skills, and evaluating multiple options, and know that there are better solutions out there. So these are not unsolvable problems that our industry faces, right? Interesting things are like these. Did you know that Dalmatian puppies are born without spots? Right. Who cares though, right? How is that helpful? I mean, unless you are some kind of a psycho who's saying, no, I want my Dalmatian puppies without spots, right? It's crazy. This information is interesting, but it doesn't get us where we want to be, at least in the sense where we want it to use. There are a couple of things more interesting, like this. Depending on how you look at it. You can burn 150 calories per hour if you bang your head on the wall, right? It could be useful. But what is useful is this. Taking action and have a prescription how to take that action. So this is a Blanchard bone. 30,000 years ago, our ancestors started carving lunar movement on these bones. Do you know why? So that they could at least predict or anticipate where the deer would be moving, so that they could plan for their next hunt. And that I call business intelligence. And this was state-of-the-art intelligence 30,000 years ago. So where is BI today? It's here. We are stuck with which direction to take, which software to use, which techniques works the best. Rather than thinking about the problem, we are stuck on which direction to take. And that's, as I said earlier, the problems that we face are not unsolvable problems. These are setup problems, how we are setting them up. And we can use that to solve our first problem using data science. So you must be thinking, what is data science? Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, though, I'm so thankful that all of you are here. And I noticed that Wikimedia presentation is going on there. So if everything goes according to plan, we should be done in 30 minutes, and you all can go there. So what is data science? So Columbia University taught this lecture on data science, and they were saying, they asked the students to come up with these different models, what data science means to them. So few students put their ideas together, but if you look at it in a sense, there are three things that are involved in data science. One, database management, manipulation. So think about SQL and Access and whatever, Excel. Second thing is machine learning or statistics. So actually how you do your modeling. And third thing is the most critical thing. So data science is kind of a new theme, new big buzzword, new hype thing that's coming up. But we have been doing these things for years. But one of the things that's missing is a storytelling visualization component of it. So these three things we can use to solve our problem number first, or problem number one rather. That's of pipeline. Please raise your hand if you do not have a pipeline problem. Okay. Yeah, because you would have been investigated thoroughly by the FBI. That's the Fundraisers Bureau of Investigation. Right? So would you agree that pipeline is our number one problem, or at least one of the biggest problems? How do we find these new prospects? How do we keep moving the prospects through the pipeline? How do we keep our pipeline unclogged? So one data science solution that we came up with at University of Michigan was using clustering and segmentation and predictive modeling. And I want to speak with some of you, if you have come up with some solutions like these. I want to know how you have come up with this. So one idea, we came up with this. So we'll be live with this system in 1 month or so, but we have been piloting for more year and a half. So what we do here is we look at all your constituency based on your population, and we create 3 segments on the likelihood of giving. And then we put them in these categories, the best, better, and good, for lack of any bad words. We don't want to offend our top donors, that they are worst prospects. But if you see, so once the segmentation is done, we do not know which cluster or which segment is really good. Then we again apply one layer of predictive modeling and say, out of these 3 clusters, which cluster is really likely to give money? And then we compute these stats. And this is a web-based wizard, so it's people can log in, gift officers can log in and check and get their prospects whenever they want and keep feeding new names to their pipeline. So in this case, you can see the best cluster in terms of these sum of the variables that we have identified are predictive of giving. They do perform really well. So their median lifetime giving is close to $15,000. Their first gift amount that we have found predictive, that if it's above $500, then they are very likely to become a major giving donor. Because to think about it, why would someone give $500 in their first shot? They must have some kind of inclination, some kind of affinity. So we put some of these attributes there, and we found that the best cluster really had these high numbers in these different attributes. And then once we have identified these, we look at also what percentage of this group is already managed, because that's again a good indication that this group is already being looked after. So in this case, 75% of people were already being managed or actively at least looked after. Then we take out 50 names. Again, this is coming from some of the best practices that we have heard, that we should give about 50 names in 3 months period to qualify. Otherwise, if you give them too much information, they're not going to do anything with that. So we give them about top 50 names, and we say, OK, go ahead and qualify them. These are unmanaged people right now, so nobody's actually managing them. You go there, and this is so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not showing you the screen 4 and 5, but actually in the screen number 5, you can get a brief bio about that person. So they don't have to launch a full-scale study, research study on who this person is. But they can just instantly see, oh, this person is sitting on these 5, 6 boards. This person has given continuously. This is the trend. So they can see a quick snapshot, and this obviously will link to the CRM, so they can click on it, and if they wanted to see more information, they can see that. But we are also limiting them to seeing only 25 names. And we are asking them to qualify these 25 names. If they don't, and if they log in next time, they will see the same 25 names. Because we want to take them action and not say interesting. So just as you may have guessed, segmentation doesn't work always, right? In this case, Netflix thinks that March of the Penguins is a critically acclaimed violent movie. Well, it is violent if you consider flap fighting violent. So it does get wrong time to time. So the analogy that we have come up with is that if you didn't have any process, you would be opening your yellow book, going through names by names. You might get some names. Sometimes you may not. But what we are doing with this process, at least, rather than fishing in this whole ocean or river, we're at least giving you a stocked pond. Your chances of success are increasing. But again, you might get a shoe or a helmet from time to time. But at least you can move on, and your chances of likelihood of success would be higher. So one of the examples that I want to give you, this is an anecdote. We don't have a whole lot of data. We have been testing out, but people are reluctant to give us data. But we are thinking this web-based system would really increase the interactions, because it will be so easy for them. If we have learned anything from iPods or Apple products, it's simple and easy things. My mom is visiting me from India, and I had such a tough time getting her to use computer when I was back home. She would use the mouse with both hands as if she would be scared what to do with this. And now I gave her my Kindle Fire, and she's just like, done, boom, playing songs, playing radio, watching YouTube videos. She said, what is this YouTube? This is so awesome. And I said, yeah, welcome to 21st century. So that's one message applies to us also. We don't want to use, although we are tech savvy or whatever you want to call us, but we will not use applications which are complicated to use. And especially in our business. It's a people business, right? It's not a data business. They want to take action only if it's easy for them. So we are hoping that that system will take care of that. So we'll have some false positives, but at least they will take some action, and we'll know, we'll learn. Just like Google learns every time we misspell something. So we apply one more segmentation system. So this is a map we did for one of our big units. So once we know who these best prospects are, we try to find where they live. And rather than drawing the lines manually, we apply one more clustering algorithm. And then we let the machine tell us which of these areas are worth focusing on. So in this example, you can see there are 6 clusters. So it's based upon the proximity of every zip code and only the best prospects. So we are not even considering other people. And you can see all these other white areas. And I don't know whether you can see these light circles, like pinkish circles. Those are the centroids of those clusters, so meaning the center of that cluster. So if you were to open an office, that would be an ideal location to open an office, only if that location is not in a valley or a river or on top of a mountain. But at least it gives you an idea where to focus. Let's say events. If you want to plan events, that could be an ideal location because everybody could flow in. Obviously, Michigan area is huge because that's where most of our folks are. And that brings to our second problem. Once we know who these best prospects are, the second challenge is knowing who knows who, right? Once we know who these people are, where they live, but we cannot reach to them. We can only reach to them once we know who they know. And gift officers love this kind of information. So our problem is not that our donors are tweeting in a fire. That problem we cannot solve using data. We need to have some good health facilities to solve these kind of problems. But our problem is who knows who. So even before the world of social media, people have been using their networks. We have used it. We have used our network to inform, make decisions. Just like big donors, big prospects like to use their network to make decisions. But how do you find that information? So 20 to 30 years ago, Mark Lombardi started coming up with these network diagrams. And I know it's hard to see, but it's even original diagram. It's quite big, so you cannot really put that in a good resolution. But you should check this out. So he calls them narrative structures. So he came up with this idea about 30 years ago. And he started drawing these network diagrams as a form of art and also an investigative tool. So this diagram that you see here is of George W. Bush, even before he was governor of Texas. So he had received close to, I think, $5 million from different 50 family members to start an energy company. So I think the company rolled out, they made some money, but eventually the company tanked and made lots of losses. But before, all these 50 members and George W. Bush himself putting all that money back into his pocket. So obviously, we do not know the whole story, whether it's true or not. But if you were to read this in a newspaper, it would be hard to just put your head around that and try to make sense of that. But this kind of structure helps you navigate through and understanding how every player in that network is playing a role. So this actually was exhibited in some museum of arts also. So this is an art, but it's an investigative tool also. You may have heard about how 9/11 terrorists were tracked. Similar tools, CIA and FBI, all the folks, they use similar kind of information. So but how does that apply to us? How do we solve this kind of problem for data science or for fundraising using data science? So since we do not have relationships or information on all our prospects, what we did here, by the way, in the center, that name is Mary Sue Coleman, who is our president. What we did was we crawled tens and thousands of websites. We scraped more than hundreds and thousands of HTML pages and extracted millions of entities, names, connected to multiple databases, and extracted these relationships using natural language processing. And natural language processing helps us convert unstructured data off the web into structured data and forms of relationships. So again, to recap this process, so you look at an HTML page, and this natural language processing lets you extract names, so nouns. So if you see my name there, it will say Ashutosh Nandeshwar. So the machine, once it has learned through this corpus of data, it will know what a name looks like. And it will say, this is a name. And then you keep extracting that. And if my name appears with, let's say, John Smith 10 times on 10 different web pages close to each other, then we assume that they do know each other. So I know to that person, or John Smith. So we use the same principle. So in our database, we do not have these many relationships for Mary Sue Coleman. But when we ran through this, we were able to get at least hundreds of names that could be connections to Mary Sue Coleman. And obviously, this is a web-based tool. So our prospect research team can go and log in and disqualify the relationships that they think are not relationships. Also, we can give this tool in the hand of gift officers, and they can go on the road and do a list review with that donor. So they could go to Mary Sue Coleman and say, hey, do you know all these people? And they can go and keep doing that. Because right now, I think people take spreadsheets or paper, and they go name by name. This might be an iterative, interactive way of doing that. So obviously you must have guessed that this doesn't work always, right? Because it is so based on abstract data. So I want to show you one example. So this is Microsoft's Entity Queue. In this case, and this is the product that inspired us to do the same things. So this is based on academic research. So they do exact same thing, but obviously they have access to multiple resources, lots of data, obviously crawling all the web pages. But they came up with a similar tool where they say, based on these things, they can say who knows who. So Rich Rogel, who's one of our top volunteers and donors, actually this system thinks that he has a direct connection with Jesus Christ. Can you see here? He might. But the reality could be that he may have given to lots of Christian organizations. That's why his name is showing up. And you can see Mary Sue Coleman, that's our president. Jeremy is our VP of Vice President of Development. So it can do a good job. I mean, at least it's able to identify these names. Otherwise, you didn't have a mechanism to do that. At least this is presenting a mechanism to do that. This is another example. This website is called Theyrulenet. You should definitely check this website. This is an awesome website. So just by looking at SEC filings and 990s, they are able to come up with this big structure. And you can see how small the world of powerful people really is. So this is all the board of directors for JP Morgan Chase, and they're everywhere. They're touching almost all the big organizations that you know that. And this is, again, an interactive tool, so you can keep exploring. And you can see where this name is coming from, how they're connected to different people. So it's a really, really great website. And they actually open up some data also. So if you are interested in getting the data, you can get your hands dirty in the pure raw data also. Which brings us to the third problem of matchmaking, right? Matchmaking of what? Matchmaking the interests of our prospects with the programs that we have, and expanding the constituency based upon those interests. So that's third. It's in a sense saying, where do we find the new prospects? Where do we find the new blood, so to say? So one method that we have been using is the market basket analysis. We know Amazons and Netflix of the world have just mastered this activity. When was the last time you logged in Amazon and bought just one item and came out, right? When you go to buy a book, it will suggest you there's 10 different books, and you will be so inclined. At least you will put them in your cart if you're not going to buy them. They have just mastered that. And this is one example of that, is that when we try to seek wisdom, I guess we seek weight loss also. Because both of them at the same time are too much to handle, right? For us, I mean, at least I cannot handle both of them at the same time. So, and I look for weight loss products whose reviews are at least 4.5. They better be good. I'm not buying any weight loss product. But so it can go wrong. It can go wrong. But again, it's going back to the fishing analogy. The likelihood of that happening is very low. And even in that case, people are not offended by this. So Netflix will always suggest me these kind of movies, kids' movies, because I watch them with my family. I'm not offended. I say, okay, whatever, I just move on to the next thing. So same thing could happen to our gift offices also, that we provide and suggest these names, or we suggest some areas of giving to our donors. They won't get offended. They will say, okay, this doesn't apply to me, and move on. So the application that we have come up with, this is the part screen one of the same application I was showing earlier. So what we do here is, again, apply the same market basket analysis principles. So let me explain again, that market basket analysis. So one of the biggest urban legends is the beer and diaper example. So in some supermarket, some people studied all types of data, what items were people buying most frequently, and what were the other items that people were buying most frequently. So they found that men would come in on Fridays and buy lots of beer, but they will also buy lots of diapers with those. So people were not able to explain why that was. Maybe some just came up with some assumptions that they want to watch a football game, drink lots of beer, but not be disturbed by these kids crying or whatever, so they buy just stock of diaper and keep it there. That's one explanation. But the actionable insight from that was that, how do we lay out the aisles? Do we keep diapers close to the beer so that men can come in and get out quickly? Or do we keep them as far as possible so that they can have their impressions on more items and they can purchase more things? So that's market basket analysis in a sense. So when next time you see a coupon for something, don't think that they're just giving you for no reason. They have studied your patterns of purchasing. On Target, that was a big article in New York Times, like how they were able to predict who's likely to be a pregnant woman, which was amazing how they were able to do that just based on few things. So, and they were selling products and they were sending coupons based upon those. So in this case, what we have done is we have hypothesized that if people behave similarly when buying items, they might behave similarly when it comes to donations. So given all the data, all the records, all the donations history, we say if they have given to, so in the second checkbox, if they have given to, let's say the main unit is athletics, so they are looking at for athletics. So people who gave to athletics also gave to med, arts, and library. So our job next time is to find people who have given to med, arts, and library, but have not given to athletics yet. And that opens up the constituency immediately, just like that. Not that our athletics department needs more constituents, they already have too much to handle. But this could be very applicable and especially helpful for smaller units or non-degree granting units. So again, museums, they don't grant degrees, they don't know who's coming in their door, let alone finding out new prospects. So this helps them find new prospects. As our second iteration, once we find success with this, we are going to go finer and find smaller programs. So let's say psychology department in College of the Arts and medical school. Then there is a direct relationship. We could say maybe people are giving here and they're also giving to this particular department. But right now we're just rolling up everything to one broad group. But that does help us. We have helped a lot of people using this to find new kind of, again, new blood. That's not a good word use, but we have done that to find that. So one more method that we can use to find new prospects. So in this example, let's say a person came to you and said, find me new people who are connected to us, but also serve on some art organization boards. So we have used this method with lots of success because, again, the non-degree granting units, who do not award degrees, they have a hard time finding new prospects. But using this method, what we can do is we can scrape, again, download all the HTML pages of these different boards. So in this example, I'm showing the Metro Museum of Art from New York. This is from GuideStar. So you can download all these pages. They actually give you CSVs also. They make your job a little bit easier. But when we did this, we were scraping this. So we would go and type in all the industries or all the organizations that we would be interested in, download all these names, and then match these names with the names that we have in our database. So that's called a fuzzy name matching. So you can match John Smith with, let's say, Jane Smith. The similarity score might be, let's say, 80% or something. So in this example, I'm showing you here that these are 3 made-up examples. We are saying Susie Brenner. The first name is Suzanne Brenner. So the similarity score might be 91. But Tom Campbell, we have one Thomas Campbell here, I think. Yeah, the second person. So the likelihood score is 95. But Sharon Edgecott, that's an exact match of 1. So the name and spelling, everything is exactly the same. And it's very easy to do. Actually, Excel has add-ins to do this. Microsoft SQL Server Business Intelligence Studio has this to do that for you. But they have an Excel add-in that you can download today and use it for your own purposes. So this is another really good way of expanding your constituency base. And with that, I want to leave you today with this. Just as in any visualization, your success is defined by your reader's success. In analysis, your success is defined by your reader's actions. If they say interesting, you have failed. Start over again, repeat your analysis. Because what we want to do as an analyst is generate actionable insights. So I hope that I have shown you these 3 big problems that we can solve with data science, or at least attempt at those. And I hope that you have found a new angle at solving pipeline problem, who knows who, the relationships, and where to get new prospects. And with that, I want to say thank you. Is there anything that I can clarify on any of the screens? I know I blew through this pretty fast. I want to attend the media session. Yeah?
So when you pull the relationships, how do you gather that data? Do you actually do y'all have your own web scrubbing or scraping routines, or you go through a third party to help with that?
No. We wrote our own Python-based scrapers. So once we identify the patterns, we just keep repeating that. So one way that for the relationships specifically, the GuideStar one is different. Once you identify the lists, for example, Forbes, 40 under 40, Fortune 500 billionaires list, We have scrapers for those. So those are standard. We can just keep running them every once a year or once a 6 months or something. But for this project specifically, we identified some resources. So let's say Google News. We know Google News are reliable resources. They are already aggregating from different Wikipedia and random 10 pages that would appear in Google search engine. So and also Bing. So we would just take those top 10 results from HTML pages, download them, also go for Wikimedia. So let's say we are searching for, again, Mary Sue Coleman. We'll see whether there is a Wikipedia entry for her, download that page. We'll go in Bing, download their top 10 links, top 10 Google News links, and same with other 10 random pages.
Can you just crawl frames?
Yeah, so for this study, we went for our top 100 prospects or top 100 donors and just went name by name and started downloading all the information. Any other thing? I want to ask you, have any of you tried segmentation? Has it worked for you in any sense? I know annual giving is big on these things, but how about major giving? Yeah.
I'm at the University of Washington, so we've just sort of started in this endeavor, but we've done we've built some models around. So we tried to model planned giving prospects.
Yeah.
We were finding that 85% of our planned gifts were just kind of coming in out of the blue. So from a marketing standpoint, they wanted to have a better idea of who in our CRM and in the general public would the kinds of people be likely more interested in a planned gift so that they could try to engage with them. And we've done some membership modeling for the annual giving. For the Alumni Association, and then we just actually did some major giving modeling using legislative proposals.
And how was the performance?
Pretty good, actually. The planned giving one, we just so happened we'd done a survey a few years ago, and one of the questions was asking people if they had included the University of Washington in the will. So we were actually able to take our model, find the people that were predicted to be likely to be interested in that, and then compare it to people who'd actually told us, kind of a blind test. And, I can't remember the exact number, but I think we had something like the vast majority of the people in our highest percentile had actually, if they responded to that survey, had made that invitation. And it wasn't one of the things we used in the model, but it just turned out to be in the score.
Awesome. Any other examples of data awesomeness?
I have a question about
Yeah.
your map. What did the colors represent there?
Nothing, really. So that's one of the, I guess,
Colors are just interesting.
that's what it is. They print nicely. People say, wow, this is interesting. So exactly, that's the reaction. Because sometimes you do have to go for those low-hanging fruits because as fundraisers, they are not so interested in looking at data. But no, in reality, these colors don't mean anything. So actually interesting, one of the problems with interesting is that, have you seen that ad, The World's Most Interesting Man? So yeah, so my wife sees that and calls me the most uninteresting man of the world. And
That's a compliment. So you got a problem with interesting.
yeah. So I open up a dictionary, two or three dictionaries, and say, there is no word uninteresting. So she says, yeah, you deserve whatever I say, so. So that's one problem. No, but driving action, I think actionable insights, that should be our biggest virtue. That's what I believe in. Yes?
How long have you had these solutions in place, and is there any evidence on how it's impacted your operations?
Yep. So one example, I don't know whether I gave earlier, but actually two examples. So one, we provided a list to one of our units. So again, getting information back has been challenging, but this web-based tool, we are hoping that we'll be catching everything right then. But right now, it's Excel spreadsheets flying in everywhere once the results are generated. We are tracking them in our CRM, but it's again, people are not saying whether this person is qualified prospect or not. So it becomes a little difficult. But one of the examples I would like to give is that out of the 10 names that we provided to one unit, 8 of them they were able to speak with. So just positive response rate based on that. And out of those 8, 4 of them, they were able to secure visits. So they were actually able to meet with 4 of them. And 1 of them is already in gift discussion. So if you look at the numbers, it's 1 in every 10 for gift, 8 in every 10 for just conversations, warm calling, and 4 out of 10 for visiting. So these are our early numbers at least, and we are saying that, yeah, this is better than your yellow page method. And the second thing with this, one of our biggest units actually used this information and created new territories for their gift officers because they had never focused on those. They said, who lives there? But actually, lots of their donors do live there. So they were able to create a new territory altogether. And we'll obviously see what it means in terms of money. But that was a big win. And then again, in some other units, they were able to identify regions where they had never paid attention to. But they actually were able to get some warm solicitations and talk with people. Yes?
With your relationships, are you mapping them internally too to count the number of people that a prospect is connected to within, say, University of Michigan, as opposed to the great wide world of boards and whatnot?
Right. So that's a good question. She said she was asking whether we are qualifying the relationships only for Michigan or we are looking at overall relationships. But to start with, we limited them because you can get really crazy results if you don't cap it at some level. So we did cap it at the second tier relationships. If the second tier of the relationship was not a Michigan connection, we excluded that person from the search. Because you can keep going down the hill and keep going searches because these were iterative searches. So first we search for Mary Sue Coleman, we get 10 names. Then we search those 10 names, find 10 more names for those every connection. So, but we had to stop at the second tier relationships.
Were you using that? I thought that people entity queue was fairly interesting, but were you using that same process of, I don't remember what you called it, natural language process to get those internal relationships? Yep. So you didn't know that they existed within University of Michigan until you went through that process.
Right.
Did you keep? Is that now stored in your database?
Yeah. So again, the question is whether we stored the information that we were able to opt in through the relationships mapping program, and the entity queue. It's a web base, so that they have all that information. I don't know how they are qualifying all that information, but obviously they have access to lots of resources that we do not. But what we are doing is, again, giving to prospect researchers. So when we have these strategy sessions, how do we know this person is connected to who? Then the prospect research team will actually qualify these names and say, no, these names are qualified, and then we'll enter them in our database, in our CRM. Any other comments? I hope this was helpful. All right, thank you.